Beautiful, starting the Masechta. We're finally starting the Masechta. Let's get right into it. This time is short. I have a little time, okay.
Turn around, is that Rosh Hashana next year?
Huh?
Before you turn around, is that Rosh Hashana next year?
100%. Amen. So, Rosh Hashana. So to start off, the Gemarrah is going to start to say that there are a few different types of Rosh Hashana. What is the importance of knowing that there are a few different types of Rosh Hashana? The reason to know this is because who decided the calendar? Who decided that it's the year ends with Chavtas Elul and it starts with Aleph, what's it called? Who decides for other things when the year starts and when the year ends? So they have to make a mark in the calendar and say that until here is the previous year and from here is the next year. And it makes a difference in a couple of different things. That's what the Mishnah is going to discuss. A couple of technicalities. Saba, Rosh Hashanah Him. Be'echad b'Nisan, Rosh Hashanah Melachim. The first day of Nisan is Rosh Hashanah for kings. And the Gemarrah is going to say that it's talking about shtalis, it's talking about writing documents. That in order to, on which day the document was written, to give it some koyach, to give it some power, knowing what's going on, they added the date of the king. And the Gemarrah is going to discuss it. Today we're going to learn more about this Melachim. Also, Echad Nisan starts the new cycle of Yom Tovim. And the Gemarrah is going to decide exactly what difference does it make. But basically, with davening we say Chag Matzes, Chag Shavuos, Chag Sukkos. It's not Stam, it's because Chag Matzes is the first Yom Tov, Chag Shavuos is the second, Chag Sukkos is the last one. Because Nisan is the beginning of the cycle of the Yom Tov. Be'echad be'Elul, Rosh Hashanah is a Machlokas. Be'echad be'Elul, Rosh Hashanah, the Ma'aseh Behema. The first day of Elul is the Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year, Ma'aseh Behema. So a guy has a flock, a herd, and a flock of sheep, a herd of a Chayes Shavuos, and he has newborn animals.
A herd of sheep, a flock of birds.
Yeah, a flock of birds. Thank you. So he has a herd, and he has newborns in the herd. Every year he has to give Ma'aseh Behema. They have to go through into a den. All the newborn animals go into a den, and they go through a narrow opening. And every 10th they give a shmais with the stecken, has some red on the top. They hit the animal, and it has a red mark. Now a city, a kodesh, 10th is holy. So now, how do you decide when do you decide that this is an old sheep or a new sheep from last year or this year? And also, not only that, but you cannot put in, let's say, 20 newborn sheep into a den, and 10 of them would be from the next year, and 10 of them would be from the previous year, and say, it doesn't make a difference. It's 10 and 10, 10 this year, 10 next year. I'm going to count every 10. It doesn't make a difference if they're mixed up. No, the halacha says that the mice has to come from the sheep of that year itself. So you can mix. So how do you determine when
so it's not an arbitrary 1 out of 10?
No,
it's
no.
1 out of a specific 10.
A specific 10 of that year, and the same thing of the following year, the year before. So when is the line? What do you cross? Where do you draw the line? So according to Tanakam, it's Echad be'Elul. So anything that was born before Echad be'Elul is considered the previous year. Anything after Echad be'Elul is considered next year. But the Belazim Shimon disagree and say no. That Rosh Hashanah is actually also on Rosh Hashanah itself on Echad b'Tishrei. Now the Gemarrah continues weiter. Echad b'Tishrei Hashanah l'Shanim. The first day of Rosh Hashanah that's how you count the years. B'Dias Ha'olam. V'la Shmitin. For Shemitah, you count 7 years. You count 6 years, and the 7th year starts Shemitah. So what moment does Shemitah start? Soon as Rosh Hashanah comes in. There's different halachas about the stuff that's growing before, after, all the different things. But when do we start saying now is the year of Shemitah? From the moment Rosh Hashanah comes in until the moment.
We learned that at some point, didn't we? Have that?
So Rosh Hashanah, the moment Rosh Hashanah comes in until the moment Rosh Hashanah is about to start again for the following year. And the same thing also Yoivlis. Yovel is also that after you count 7 times 7, you go into the 50th year. That comes Yovel. And Yovel is also an additional thing. At what point do the slaves go free? What point does it go free? So that happens also on the Rosh Hashanah. They don't go home until Yom Kippur because then there's a whole party. At what point do the fields return to their original owners? It's also the moment Rosh Hashanah comes in. That's why it's important to know what is the Echad b'Tishrei, l'Yovelis, l'Shmit, l'Yovelis. The Netiyah. So we have halacha that as soon as if you plant a new, fresh, brand new tree, it starts growing. The first 3 years you have halacha of Allah. You can't cut the tree, can't reap its fruit, you can't have an offering. How do you count the 3 years? So you don't count it from the day you put in the seed. You count it from Rosh Hashana. So if you put in the seed, Chavtes Elul, that will be year 1. And then,
I think there's a halacha that like 40 days.
Whatever I meant as an example. So the details doesn't discuss here the details, but I'm saying like, basically, it's not that it has to go through a long period and then it's considered 1 year. The minimum amount, if it's a month, 2 months, if you planted the tree, the seed into the ground, and the summer, as soon as the Shana comes, that is year 1. And basically, this gives us a very easy count. When is Allah over? The second Rosh Hashana the third Rosh Hashana after you planted a tree. So that's an easy way to remember. You planted a tree, you count 3 Rosh Hashanas, and you get to use the tree. Actually not, because then you have Neta Levoy. That's another thing. And Neta Levoy finishes sometimes in Rosh Hashanah, the following Rosh Hashanah, sometimes in Shvat, Al Shvat, Tu B'Shvat, but that's something that's discussed elsewhere. In any case, so for Netiyah, for counting Allah, you don't count from the moment you put into the ground, but you count the first year finishes at the first Rosh Hashanah. Maisa of Yirakas, also fruits and vegetables, also you need to give Maisa. So when do you count the Yirakas Maisa? When do you count, and again also you cannot give Maisa from vegetables that were grown this year on the vegetables that were grown the following. You say it has to be Maisa on that for that year. So where do you draw the line? Where do you say it's the previous year, future year? The next year, you say the line is Rosh Hashanah, Echad B'Tisha. Then the Gemara goes by to Echad B'Shvat Rosh Hashanah Ilon. The first day in Shvat is Rosh Hashanah for Ilonos. Kediv B'Shama, B'Sil Oimim, B'Chamisha, also by the 15th. So whether it's on the first and the 15th, so B'Chalikas B'Shama, B'Sil, what is this Rosh Hashanah Ilon? We just said, Netiyah, if you plant a tree, you count 3 years, not from the moment you plant. You count from the moment you plant. This is already year 1 started. As soon as Hashanah comes in, it's the second year. So Hashanah Ilon is not for this, but it's for Maisa. Interestingly, when it comes to Maisa, you have fruits that are growing on the tree. When do you count? This is Maisa Rishon, Maisa Sheni, Maisa Ani. How do you count that? So you count it from not from when it's planted, but from Rosh Hashanah, from Tes Leilon, so Al B'Shvat or Tes Vav B'Shvat. Okay. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to discuss why is it important to have this date of Echad B'Nisan that is Hashanah L'Melachim. So the Melachim, the Ma'il. Why is it important? What can we learn? Where does this apply to other meforshim Taichin? Why can't you just make one date for everything? Or why do we need a date for kings? Why do we even need a date for kings? What's the point of having? It doesn't make a difference how long he is a king. Huh? So have a Gemarrah, to write down in a document. So here is an interesting machlokes. Rashi says that what's the reason you need to write the king's date in a shtar? Rashi says, why do we write the date of something else? Write the date of I don't know what. Why after king? Rashi says from the Gemarrah in Gittin, because they wanted because they wanted to have peace with the kingdom. Whoever king was reigning, that they were.
So basically, if they wrote a document, they wouldn't write. It's 2025. They would write. It's the second year of Donald J. Trump.
Something like that. Yeah, basically. No kings. So,
and it's the second year.
He's in yeshiva, it is not. Yeah. No, but you're right. You're right. Technically, you're right. Yes, that's the. It could be a couple reasons. It could be, first of all, the count of 2025 only exists for 2,025 years. What happened before that? They didn't write BCE. They didn't write what's it called? They didn't have that. The BCE only started even after. So they didn't have an accurate count. Also, they didn't know exactly when the world started. But even the Yidden, it was like if you write a legal document, I guess if you want to have it binding by the non-Jewish courts, if they have a goyish date, so they had to use a date of something.
This is not referring to a goyish date. This is referring to by the Yidden they would use the Yiddish king was the.
So this is what this was about to say. Rashi says that we want to have peace with the kingdom. So where does he take it from? From Gittin. Over there it says Mishum Shlei Malchus, because we want to honor the kingdom. We want to honor the king. So therefore we use his date of whatever how long he is king, even though we may not count the same way. They may count from the day he actually became king, and we counted from Rosh Hashana, of Echad Nisan. But we basically gave them the honor of counting in the Gittin. We gave them the honor. So Rashi says this applies to everything. Anytime you write a shtar, you use the reason Shlei Malchus, that you want to have peace with whatever is written down, to write the date of the Goyish king. Tosfos disagrees.
Yeah.
Is this today? Also today? Non-Kesubas, no way.
No. Today we don't. It's a minyan she'onu moinin kan. This is according to how we count it today.
Which type of star you
Ksuba.
Ksuba. Yeah,
Gittin, I don't know. I don't know what it says in a get exactly, but it says also similar. What's it called? But back in the day. So Tosfos says when it came to Gittin, the shtar of a get is the most important shtar in Torah. There's no other shtar that's as important as a get. Even Ksuba, which actually came after Torah. Yeah, Ksuba is not written in the Torah. A get is the shtar written in the Torah, and it's the most important one because this allows a woman to now marry someone else. This is the most important. So they told the Goyim, the most important shtar, we're going to honor the Goyish king. But all the other stars, Tosfos says no. Rashi says all the other stars also Goyish king. Tosfos says no. All the other stars is for a simple reason. We need to know a date. And the Gemarrah is going to say, why is the date important in the shtar? The Tanan, second line of the Gemarrah, a star of a choiv, an IOU note. If an IOU note is written on an earlier date, so I borrowed money, Aleph Tammuz, and the lender writes me a note saying that I borrowed the money, not the first day of Tammuz, but the first day of Iyar, of Sivan. Such a paper, if I can bring proof, if I can bring that the date is wrong, that has ramifications. He can still come take the note and say, if the Eidim said that this note is okay, but the date is wrong, he can still come and ask me for the money. However, what if I don't have money? And now you want to go and collect my properties, because I had back in the day, that's how they work, that properties. So now, if the shtar was predated a month or two earlier, it makes a problem. Because Allah is like this. If I borrow money, if I borrow $100,000 in Tammuz, and I own fields, any field that I own until I borrow the money, that field is called Nechasim Meshubadim. This is a property that is Meshubad, that is collateral for my, a full collateral. Which means what? Which means that if after I borrow the money, I go and sell the field, and then comes the day that I got to pay up the money, and I don't have, the lender can now go to the buyer of my field and say, you bought the field, but the field is collateral to my loan.
The English word is expropriate.
Or a lien. No, isn't there like a lien?
No, there
Expropriate.
is a lien.
The lien on the property.
And now the purchaser could
the lender can go to the purchaser and get it back. There's a lien against the property. Okay. So now here is a very simple thing. Here's a very simple scenario. If I wrote a earlier date in the shtar, okay, if I wrote an earlier date in the shtar, if I bought a field between the first of Sivan and the first of Tammuz, so in truth, that shtar should have been meshubad. What?
The field would not be because it was purchased before the correct.
Right. But because it's written after, it makes a whole mess. So that's what it says. Shtaris hamukdamim psulim v'machalin kshelim. Basically, so now in order to avoid this issue, they had to make a clear date. Here's the thing: if I borrow money in Tammuz and I buy a field in Kislev, okay, if I borrow money in Tammuz and I buy a field in Kislev,
The previous Kislev or the following Kislev?
we don't know. It says in the shtar I bought a field in Tammuz, and it says in another shtar that in a shtar kniya in a purchase agreement that I bought a field in Kislev. Now, the lender can say, Kislev, it's before Tammuz. This field is good collateral. If you sold this field, I can take this field from the buyer. But what if we say from Aleph ben Nisan that the year starts on the first day of Nisan, Tammuz comes before Kislev. So therefore they decided to write in the star very clearly. Be'echad betamuz b'shnas sholosh lemelech Yanai, for example. On the first day of Tammuz, on the third year of King of Yanai. And then in the star by Kislev, it says the same thing. Be'echad be'Kislev, the first day of Kislev, b'shnas sholosh lemelech Yanai, the third day of Yanai. Now we know that Kislev is after, because if it will be before, it will be the second year, not the third year. So therefore they write a shtar, because not to make this whole issue of Me'uchal and Mugdam.
So what does that have to do with Av Nisan?
Why Av Nisan?
Is the cutoff time.
No, why Av Nisan Melachim? The Gemarrah is going to say later. Why Dafka Av Nisan? Why not everything
No,
after
no,
Tishrei?
I mean,
understand that, but
why can't he just start it at, let's say he became king at Chavtas Shvat?
Because then you're never going to remember. Every king is going to have a different date. You're not going to remember.
so
Plus,
Aleph Nisan is 1 year, and Aleph Nisan going forward is 2 years.
yeah, that's
Year
So
number
then
two.
you're gonna have to remember. Let's say Stone wrote a deal for Chavtas.
The king remembers.
who wrote these stars were written by a Sefer.
Chavchas Sivan, Chavchas Shvat, and the 10th year of this kingdom.
Yeah.
And then the next one is, and then the next day is gonna be the first year of the next kingdom. You're gonna.
Right. That is correct. That is correct. But usually the person that writes the shtar is usually a Sefer. So they're hired. And these Sofrim, they would know that from this, I know I changed my date. Same way you know when you write, I start writing anything after Tisha, Pevav. Now we're in Pevav. Maybe the first 2 or 3 it's make a mistake, but you realize it's Pevav. Anyway, so basically, they made a certain date, but that doesn't make a difference when the king actually became king, because that will just confuse everyone. They made a date, Aleph Nisan. As soon as Aleph Nisan comes, second year starts. Second years of the king starts, and therefore we're not going to run into this problem of saying, oh, is it earlier, is it later? That's basically what Rashi is saying here. This long Rashi here, that's what Rashi is bringing down. Tana Rabbanan. This was a technical. Now it gets just simple back and forth. Tana Rabbanan. Melech she'amad b'esler v'tisha b'Adar. A king that became a king on the 29th of Adar. Kivan, so that's basically the last day of the king year. What happens? Kivan shegia echad b'nisan. As soon as echad b'nisan hits, also Lashana, the last day of Adar is considered a full year. And now the next morning he wakes up, he's a king for 2 years. In his second year. V'im le'amad ela b'echad b'nisan. If he only became a king on the first day of Nisan, we don't count the first day of the year only until the next Nisan reaches. So basically, the 29th of Adar, day 1, year 1. Echad b'Nisan is day 2, but technically we're year 2. Year 2 already. But in Nisan it's not. So the Gemarrah, we're going to dissect this. Yeah, a king that became a king on the 29th of Adar, as soon as Nisan hits, it's a full year. And this is coming to teach us 2 things. One, Kamashma, not what the Mishnah says is taka true. The Nisan Rosh Hashana Melachim. Nisan is the Rosh Hashana of our kings. And the other thing is, and in 1 day a year is considered a full year. Then the Mishnah continues and says, that if he only became a king in Nisan, that it's not considered a full year. That's l'chayre pashat. That's not a chiddush. We said that Chavtes Adar is considered 1 day. Anything after that is not considered. It's considered a full year. 1 day in the last year of the kingdom is considered a full year. As soon as you say that, if he became a king on Aleph Nisan, we know that it'll take a year for him to be counted as a full year. So what's the pshita? No, we needed the imna le'am adar. What happens in the olden days before kings became hereditary and became a Yerusha was that they had electors. Back till the Roman Empire, we had electors. It wasn't just a given that because your father was a king that you were going to become a king. That the electors were powerful. So what happens is if the old king died or abdicated or whatever it was, and imno le'am adar, and other they sat down and decided that so-and-so is going to become the next king. He's going to become the next emperor. So now, do we just say, because everyone decided, the election happened. November 20th, the election happened, but it doesn't make the guy a president yet, right? On November 20th, we know basically that who the president is going to be. But it doesn't make him president yet. So basically the question is, because they know already, they elected him on that day in Adar, do we say that until the 1st of Nisan should be considered the first year? And as soon as Nisan comes in, it's the second year. But that's Kamash Malon that no. The moment the coronation happens, that's when you become king. Not when they decided to make you king. The Imno Lema Adar. Ma'adatem and Imno Letaten should count Nisan as 2 years because they already decided in Adar that he should be king. Kamash Malon no. So basically, again, 29th of Adar, if you become a king on 29th of Adar, that day will be considered 1 year. The next day starts the next year, and it goes until the next Nisan. If you became a king on Nisan, you have to wait a full year until you complete the first year. Then the Gemarrah is now going to say the similar Mishnah, and it's going to learn new things out of the similar Mishnah. But if a king died in Adar, and another king was anointed in the same Adar, so what do you count now? Let's say a king X was king this is his 10th year, and he died on Adar. If he would have lived until Nisan, it would have been his 11th year, but he died in Adar. And King Y was anointed in Adar itself. So what do you write in the Shtar? Do you write the 10th of so-and-so, or the 1st of so-and-so? It's a little confusing. So the Gemarrah says you can write both. You can either write this or that. You can count, you can say, even though the guy is dead, but if people still know him, it's still fresh, they can write the 10th year of King so-and-so, or they can write the first year of King so-and-so.
I always thought there was a concept there's never two rulers at the same time.
But counting you could, because don't forget that all the documents written up until then had that guy's date. So in order not to confuse everyone, you wanted to make sure that it's that date. But that question, the Gemarrah asks a similar question to this. Meis ben Nisan v'omen achatachto ben Nisan. If he dies in Nisan and someone else became a king in Nisan, and again Nisan came in already, so now this is King X's 11th year, and the King Y first year. Again, he can write both because we recounted according to his years already. You count 11th year of King X, first year of King Y. What happens if King X dies in Adar, and the other king only became king in Nisan? What do you do then? Very simple. The guy never lived to see Nisan, so as soon as Nisan comes, you don't count for him anymore. Until Nisan, you count for the first king. As soon as Nisan comes in, you count it for the second king as the first year. You don't mix up. If the guy died in Adar and a new king came in Nisan, you separate them two. You count the Adar for the old king and Nisan for the new king.
What if the guy only comes in? Let's say you're Nisan, and then
So until then, it's
and you don't know for sure who's going to win.
So very, very good question. Until then, you count as the old king, but the moment the new king comes in, you don't count for him anymore. Done. We're done with him. We don't count for him anymore. Okay. Zag the Gemarrah Azay.
Inside.
Yeah.
You go
Go to the corner and
to the corner. Go to the menorah there. Go to the menorah over there. We're going to dissect this Mishnah. This Blaisa. If someone died in Adar and the other king became a king in the same Adar, we count a year for him and a year for him. Pshita. Very simple. Obviously, that's what he can do. Mao the Tema, you would have thought we don't count two kings at the same time, like you said. We don't count mixed two kings. Kamashmalan, yes, you could do that because it's started so we don't confuse people.
That's what the Bryce is teaching us.
Yeah, Bryce is teaching us to address your question that you should have not counted because it makes sense. Don't mix two kings, but he could do it because of Shtadas. I guess you don't want to mix people up. Someone died in Nisan and someone else became a king in Nisan. Then you can count the year for him and him. Again, there should be pshita. If other is okay, and because you could count, the years for both, then this should be okay again. So what's the Mishnah telling us? What's the chiddush over here? Mao the Tema, we would have thought. When do you say that 1 year of the entire year is considered a full year? Only if it's the last day of the year, then you say, okay, that's a full year. But Aleph Nisan, and the guy dies in Aleph Nisan, do you count his year? Or do you say, no, it's 10 years and a day? So the Gemarrah, yes, we do count it. If the king X died on Aleph Nisan, you would say that he was a king for 11 years, even though it was just 10 years and a day. Because he got into what's it called. So we do count 1 day in the beginning of the year as a full year as well. That's that Chiddush. And if someone died in Adar and the other one became a king in Nisan, we count until the other guy gets up. We count according to the old king. Obviously, that's how it's supposed to be. We're talking about a big chiddush here. We decided already in Adar that this guy is going to be a king. Now, the truth is, this chiddush we already had in the previous brayso. If someone, we said in the previous brayso, it says like this: if someone died in Adar and they became a king in Nisan, if the electors elected him in Adar, we still don't count him because it doesn't make a difference. So here the brayso has to add another chiddush. There's two things over here. Number one, the electors elected him already in Adar. Number two, Umelech ben Melechu. He's a king, a son of a king, so it's very certain that he would be the next king. So here you have two things going in his favor. Technically, you would say, obviously, start counting the moment they decided that he's going to become king, which was in Adar. We should count Nisan as a second year. Kamash Malon, we only count it as year 1. What time is it now? Okay. So basically, to summarize here, if a king dies in Adar, doesn't make a difference what day in Adar, that will be considered a king. That will be considered the year of his kingdom. And it doesn't.
Assuming he has official coronation.
Yeah, if they anointed him, coronated, whatever it was, Allah Kisa Malucha, he's sitting on his throne, he's done, he's a king. Even he's a king only for 1 day in Adar, that is considered a full year, and Nisan starts year number 2. But vice versa, it doesn't. If he becomes a king on the 1st of Nisan, then you have to wait a year. If someone is a king for 2 days, they anointed him Chaftas Adam. Okay, the next day he died. How many years was he a king? 2 years. It was a year. He was a year only for 2 days, but he was also a king for 2 years. That's because the first year, yeah, king for 2 years. Okay, so that's that's what the Gemarrah is discussing. Now the question is, you asked why Dafke is Nisan. Why do we decide Nisan? Why can't they just make 1 day in the year? Aleph Tishrei, Rosh Hashana for everything. Why did it decide that for Melachim, for kings, we make the Rosh Hashana on Nisan? So the Gemarrah says Psukim. Minayin, where do we know from the title? Melachim she'en moeden len el Nisan. How do we know that we count from Nisan? Shenemar, because it says in Pasuk, Vayihi b'shmoinim shana v'av me'ashana. Was the 480th year? Let's say it's b'nei Yisrael Mitzrayim, from the Eden going out, when the Eden went out of Mitzrayim. 480 years after Eden went out of Mitzrayim, which was also b'shana ha'levi's, the 4th year, b'chodesh Ziv, b'chodesh Shein, the 4th year, the 2nd month of Shloimeh HaMelech. Well, he was a king. The Melech Shloimeh al-Islam. The 4th year that Shloimeh Melech was a king. So now we have mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is obviously in Nisan because that's when it happened. And we're mentioning the Melech Shloimeh, the same pasuk. We make what's called a Hekesh. Because in the same pasuk, we are comparing the two and saying, just like this is in Nisan, this is also in Nisan. So from this pasuk, we see that we count the king, the Shana of Kings, we count on this in Nisan. Just like Yetzias Mitzrayim was in Nisan, and we counted from Nisan, same thing also, Malchus Shloimeh, we count from Nisan. But now, a simple question. Who says that Yetzias Mitzrayim is counted from Nisan? It doesn't say it in the Pasuk. We assume that it's from Nisan. How do we, when it says in the title, Shana Shein, it says when it's all by Mitzrayim. In the title it says, when they started building the Mishkan, the 2nd year. When does the 2nd year start? Maybe the Eden went out.
In years, no, it's Tishrei and Nisan,
Right, so maybe it's Tishrei. Who says for there's many different dates? Who says for Tzias Mitzrayim when I say it's now 2,000 something for 400, 500, 600, 3,000 something years from Tzias Mitzrayim? Where do we start to count?
But in the Torah, the sequence, I guess maybe it's, you don't go by the sequence, but
There's
it's
Machloek.
again,
Again,
Pesach.
yeah.
He says bring the Korban Pesach and then sacrifice it and then eat it and then put the blood on the doorpost and then That's what
happened.
Maybe it's in Shvat. What?
No, that happened on Pesach. But when you say this happened 500 years from Tzias Mitzrayim, who says, just like a king, maybe they counted a half year. Tisha came, now it's a second year of Tzias Mitzrayim. We don't go on anniversary. We're not counting by anniversary. We're counting by the cut of
went
it.
out in Nisan, so from Nisan to Tishrei was 1 year, and Tishrei was the second year.
Second year. So who says that Nisan is actually the count? So the Gemarrah. How do we know Tzias Mitzrayim? You count from Nisan.
You're right. My Rashi says Minyan Hashonim shemoinim lo mitchilim minisan. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, how do we know that starts from Nisan? Maybe it starts from Tisha. Don't think that way. The Chsiv, it says in the we have to bring another pasuk. By combining these two psukim, the pasuk by Shlomo Melech, saying that it's the 4th year of his reign, the 480th year of Tzias Mitzrayim, and this second pasuk, if you combine them both, that's how you got to Tzias Mitzrayim with Nisan. What does it say? Pasuk? There's two psukim actually. V'yala anakoyin al-hoydahal al-pi Hashem. Anakoyin went up to the hoydahal because the Eibusha told him to. When did he die? Bishnas ha'boim. To what count? Let's say it's when it's the 40th year of the Yidden Mitzrayim. What's the b'chodesh ha'chamishi b'echad b'chodesh? Av?
Who said that's Av?
Maybe it's what's it called? No, b'chodesh ha'chamishi is always Av.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, b'chodesh ha'chamishi is because Chadashim always start what's it called? In the Torah, Chodesh Rishon, Chodesh Chamishi, Chodesh Shvi. So on the first day in Av of the 40th year of the Yidden going on the Mitzrayim, Adam passed away. Then it says in the pasuk, and this is in ב.א-ב.ב, and in the Vadim it says a pasuk Uchsiv, Vahi ba'aboyim shana. Again it says aboyim shana. Be'ashta asa chodesh, in the 11th month, Shvat, be'echad ba'chodesh, be'alev Shvat, Moshe started telling the Yidden the whole Torah. Moshe started the Chumash Dvarim, started talking to them, and it. This is obviously after Aaron Cohen. They're standing by Yalden. They're standing. This is obviously Aaron Cohen is dead already, passed away already. So it must be that Shvat comes after Av, because it says here Aboim Shana and it says here Aboim Shana. If this is the 40th year, and he say Av is in the 40th year, and he say Shvat is in the 40th year, it's very simple. It must be that Shvat is after Av, and he say, let's say it's from going on Mitzrayim. So now we know that counting the years of Mitzrayim, when do you count it? Nisan, because if you count the Tisha, then Shvat is before Av. Then Shvat would have been the 41st year. Okay, very beautiful answer. But the Gemarrah still doesn't let go. It says, what if, it doesn't say about the 40th year of going on Mitzrayim. It says 40th year. Maybe we're talking about the 40th year of building the Mishkan. The Mishkan was built a year after Mitzrayim. They walked on Mitzrayim. It's really the 41st year. It's after Aaron Cohen passed away. It's true, but it's not the same time. So we don't know that Nisan is the cutoff date to count the Tzias Mitzrayim. Maybe the 40th year mentioned by Moshe Rabbeinu talking is not from Tzias Mitzrayim. Maybe it's talking about when they build the Mishkan. And with the Gemarrah Kadam of Papa Shnas Esrim Shava in the Daf Gimel, it brings a pasuk that it says in one place the 20th year of a king. It says another place 20th year, and because in one place it's written out clearly what the 20th year to what, you can make a Gezer Shava because it's the same words, and you can apply the 20th year of the same thing that over there is the 20th year of King Achashratzala, one of these guys. I forgot how you can. No, sorry. Al-Artachshasta. Al-Artachshasta. Al-Artachshasta, yeah, Al-Artachshasta. Yeah, so this, because in one place it says it was the 20th year of his reign, so the next time it says in the same area, it says 20th year, we applied also that it's a 20th year. The same thing here also. It says Al-Boim Shana when Aaron Cohen passed away. And over there it says clearly it's a Tzias Mitzrayim. And it says later on that the Yidden stood by Boim Shana, they stood in the 40th year, and Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to them. We make a Gezerah Shava that it's the same count, that it's for Tzias Mitzrayim. Now that we know that the Tzias Mitzrayim is counted according to Nisan, now we go back and say that we make the comparison of Shloima HaMelech and his count over there. It says Nisan to tell us that yes, that Aleph Nisan is a Shana L'Melachim. And therefore it goes back to the kings. They're also telling you that the year of the rain starts being counted on the Chodesh Nisan. Flag the Gemarrah another question. Just tell me, this question is a little bit difficult actually, because yes, if you look in the Chumash and start working out the chronological order and the traveling and everything, this question doesn't make sense. When Moshe Rabbeinu stood and said on the first day of Shvat in the 40th year, it's very clear when Moshe stood on the other side of the Yarden, he was ready. Did everything. He's standing by the Yarden and he's talking to the Eden. So next question. Yeah. So the Gemarrah is asking, maybe this story of Moshe Rabbeinu standing happened before Aaron passed away. So many meforshim ask the question. It doesn't. This is the Stama question, saying like it's. They passed away, yeah, within a couple months of an Adam. Aaron Cohen and Moshe Rabbeinu passed away within a couple months. But maybe this Shvat story that Moshe Rabbeinu is standing happened not a year, not a month before he passed away. It happened a year or something before he passed away. A year and a month before he passed away. Maybe the Shvat happened before Aaron Cohen passed away. And this is probably just it's not, almost like a rhetorical question. The Gemarrah just wants to bring a pasuk, because the question doesn't make sense. If you look in the Chumash and you look how the Yidden traveled, and many meforshim asked this question, look in the Chumash and check how the Yidden traveled, it doesn't make sense to say that. They were standing, it says in the Psuk, they were standing by Moyav, they beat up Psichot, and everything, it's clear cut they were talking about after Aaron Kohen passed away. Maybe Shvat was before of, maybe Shvat, the story of Moshe Rabbeinu talking to the Yidden, was before Aaron Kohen passed away. He couldn't think that way. When Moshe Rabbeinu started talking, what does it say? That after he won the war with Sichon. When Aaron passed away, Sichon was still alive. How do we know Sichon was still alive? It says in Pasuk, that the Knani, the king of Adad, heard that Aaron passed away. When he stalked on the cover, he heard that Aaron passed away, and the another cover that surrounded the Eden is gone, and now he can finally fight the Eden. Because somebody thought maybe there's now permission to go fight with Eden. It says in Pasuk, they all saw that the Aaron passed away. What do you mean they all saw? Obviously the Aaron passed away. What do you mean they saw the Aaron passed away? They were seen. Not scared. They were seen. Because the Aaron was gone, the Yidden were seen. So the reader pasuk again, the entire nation of Yidden was seen. Because Gavanan. Not they were scared because Aaron passed away, or they were scared that Aaron passed away, or they saw that Aaron passed away. No, they were seen because Aaron passed away, and the Nanakav left us. Now we know that Sichon was still alive when Aaron Kohen died. So we must say that the Shvat story is after Av. And the next Gemarrah is going to say, okay, it doesn't say Sichon, it says Kanani Melachalot, it doesn't say Sichon. How do you know it's Sichon? The Gemarrah is going to continue that.